and once the guest of honor arrives, we'll be able to just recap. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community and stakeholdership. We ask all this through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. The Permanent Secretary, Commerce, Trade and Industry, Mrs. Lillian Walia, CCPC Executive Director, Mr. Brian Lingela, ZICTA Director General, Mr. Choi Nalubamba, being represented by Director Economic Regulation and Consumer Protection, Mr. Bernard Banda, Chief Executive Officers from the various organizations present, senior government officials present, representatives from various institutions present, members of the organizing committee of the World Consumer Rights Day 2024, members of the press, or should I simply say distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jane Mukumbwa Chilumba from ZICTA, Department of Economic Regulation and Consumer Protection, and be your master of ceremony today. So to begin our program, I would like to just welcome you all to this day where the organizing committee has put up a panel discussion where we would like different organizations, institutions, stakeholders to sit on a round table just to share around this year's theme, which is on fair and responsible artificial intelligence for consumers. When we started our meetings as a committee, I'm just looking at the chair right now, we had a lot of discussions around AI, and we had all these conceptions. We were talking about robots. We wanted to see how artificial intelligence resonates with consumers, and we did reach, I think, a consensus, and we said, okay, each institution should be able to explain it from their point of view, what AI is and how consumers can be able to use artificial intelligence. So at this point in time, I would like to call upon the CCPC Executive Director. Sorry, just before I call upon the CCPC Executive Director, I would like to call upon the World Consumer Rights Day National Organizing Committee Chairperson, Ms. Kutemba Foloshi from NEMA, to just give a few welcome remarks before the CCPC Executive Director comes in.
Committee, I would like a moment to extend my thanks to each and every one of you be here today, the panel discussion as well as the panelists. World Consumer Rights Day is observed. Celebrating World Consumer Rights Day is a chance to demand that all the rights of consumers are respected and to protect against market abuses and social injustices which undermine those rights. Consumer rights means that every person who buys various products, goods and services has the right to have information, quality, price and standard of those products. World Consumer Rights Day each year, there is a specific theme that addresses different concerns regarding all consumers. The World Consumer Rights Day theme for 2024 is Fair and Responsible AI for Consumers. AI refers to a set of technologies that allow machines to function intelligently and mimic human sensing, comprehension, and action. The technology will have a significant impact in almost all areas where human intelligence is involved. It can be used by businesses and institutions to personalize activities, optimize operations, promote innovations, empower and supplement staff. Essentially, AI changes the way people function, allowing for more efficient resource allocation, which leads to increased productivity and allows better government service delivery to the public. Specifically, the application of AI in education, healthcare, agriculture, commerce, and governance is showing a significant impact on their various activities. The world is now living in the fourth industrial revolution, where solutions to the many socio-economic challenges we are facing are now powered by state-of-the-art technologies such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and machine deep learning. Government has approved the Smart Zambia e-government master plan that provides a blueprint to transition the country into a smart Zambia. The adoption and use of artificial intelligence is rapidly increasing around the world. In Africa, AI creation and implementation is transforming our lives and cultures in a variety of ways, including economically, socially, and politically. These developments are always difficult to comprehend and predict, and they are only becoming more so as the COVID-19 pandemic predict. And they are only becoming more so as the COVID-19 pandemic continues. According to a research report, increasing the adoption of AI in Africa requires the development of vibrant ecosystems based on 5 stakeholders who form the foundation of building AI success, including policymakers, universities, large companies, startups, and multi-stakeholder. I encourage everyone in attendance to actively participate in today's discussions. Thank you all.
Thank you very much to my able-bodied chair. She's been looking forward to this day. Shall we give her another round of applause, please? At this point in time, I would like to call upon CCPC Executive Director, Mr. Brian Lingela, to give us his remarks.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies. Excuse me. Our distinguished guest of honor, the Permanent Secretary in charge of Commerce and Trade at the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, Madam Lillian Walia. I recognize the chairperson of the 2024 World Consumer Rights Day organizing committee, Madam Kutemba Foloshi. I also recognize the members of the organizing committee for the 2024 World Consumer Rights Day. I recognize the presence of the Director General, Zambia Information and Communication Technologies Authority, Engineer Cholwe Nalubamba, ably represented by the Director for Economic Regulation and Consumer Protection, Mr. Bernard Banda. I recognize the Director for Financial Conduct Supervision at the Bank of Zambia, Madam Frida Tamba. I have also seen Mr. Sajiv Nair, the board member for CATS International. I recognize also senior government officials in our presence, and the media as well. Let me just say, distinguished guests, fellow advocates for consumer rights, and may I simply say all protocols observed. A very good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Okay, that's much better. I must say I'm privileged on behalf of the Commission and also honored to welcome you all to our panel discussion in commemoration of the 2024 World Consumer Rights Day, organized by the World Consumer Rights Day National Organizing Committee. Special thanks to the National Organizing Committee for arranging this important forum today. Now, the year was 1962, precisely on the 15th of March, when the then President for the United States of America, John F. Kennedy, sent a very special message to the Congress of the United States of America, in which he promulgated the need for the recognition and also protection of consumer rights. Now, in his address, and this is just part of an excerpt of his address, he said the following words, and let me quote: "Consumers include us all. They are the largest economic group affecting and affected by almost every public and private economic decision. Yet they are the only important group whose views are often not heard." End of quote. Now, when you look at these words today, ladies and gentlemen, they stand true even today, considering that consumers go through a lot of challenges in our midst, and to a large extent, they are never respected. And the world has, since 1962, rallied together to ensure the protection of consumers from all forms of unfair trading. And as we gather here today, we join the rest of the world in a tradition that has been ongoing, particularly here in Zambia since 2008, in the quest to celebrate the fundamental rights of consumers. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the current organizing committee for 2024, and of course, the past National Organizing Committee for the support rendered to the Commission, which has since then served as a secretariat in organizing these events. I'm also indebted to each and every one of you, ladies and gentlemen, for having continually supported this significant event year in and out. Your unwavering dedication and commitment to promoting consumer rights in Zambia has played a pivotal role in advancing our mission and advocating for fairness and transparency in the marketplace. As we reflect on the theme for this year's commemoration, dubbed Fair and Responsible Artificial Intelligence for Consumers, we essentially remind ourselves of the ever-evolving landscape for consumer protection. I want to believe if President Kennedy was still alive today, he would be shocked at the impact of his words of 1962, considering the technological developments and their impact on not only commerce and trade, but consumers as well. And with the rapid advancement in technology, and I think over the table we're just having a conversation with colleagues about how technology has evolved. It therefore becomes imperative that we address the challenges and also embrace the opportunities that have been presented by artificial intelligence to ensure that consumer rights remain safeguarded, particularly in this digital age. Throughout today's proceedings, we will engage in insightful discussions. We will share innovative ideas and reaffirm our collective commitment to upholding the principles of fairness, accountability, and empowerment for all our consumers in Zambia. Let me at this point extend my sincere appreciation to the panelists that have agreed to be part of this panel discussion, coming from partner institutions, particularly ZICTA, the Bank of Zambia, CATS International, Zambia Revenue Authority, Bongo Hive. I can see you, and we do appreciate the innovation in the marketplace from your institution. We do have FNB Bank, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and let me say all of you, our partners that are here, for your continued support and dedication to the cause for consumer rights. Together, let us strive to create a future where every consumer is empowered, informed, and also protected. I thank you.
Thank you very much for those remarks, Executive Director from CCPC. At this point in time, we'll go into the area of discussion, and I would like to invite ZICTA Director, Economic Regulation and Consumer Protection to deliver a keynote speech, which was supposed to have been delivered by the ZICTA Director General, Engineer Chole Nalubamba, who couldn't be with us today due to some other engagements. Shall we give him a round of applause?
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony, and good morning to all of you. As indicated, I'm here representing our Director General at the Zambia Information and Communications Technology Authority. He had wanted to be here in person, but due to an emergent, equally important engagement, he couldn't join us. So I'll deliver the keynote address on in his place, and I must emphasize that he really did want to be here to make these remarks himself. So let me also recognize the presence of the Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, Ms. Lillian Walia, who I'm informed will be joining us a little later. I also recognize the immediate speaker, who is the Executive Director at the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, Mr. Brian Lingela. I also do recognize the Director from the Bank of Zambia, responsible for financial conduct and supervision, Madam Frida Tamba. I also do recognize the board member from the Consumer Unity Trust Society International, Mr. Sajiv Nair. Let me also recognize the presence of other senior government officials present, the development partners that are with us today. I also do recognize the media houses that are present this morning. And let me simply say, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm greatly honored to deliver the keynote speech at this very important event, which is happening on the eve of our commemoration for the World Consumer Rights Day, which is being celebrated under the theme, Fair and Responsible Artificial Intelligence for Consumers. This week, we have joined the consumer movement and other influential actors world over to celebrate World Consumer Rights Day and to raise awareness on consumer rights, protection, empowerment on an important topic, which is fair and responsible AI for consumers. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me as well to congratulate the Nation Organizing Committee that has been working on all the activities related to this year's World Consumer Rights Day, including the event that we're attending this morning. They certainly deserve commendation for the tremendous work that they've been doing, leading to a commemoration of this important day tomorrow. I wish to particularly congratulate the team for convening us all at this important dialogue where we'll share some thoughts on the theme relating to fair and responsible AI for consumers. As the regulator for information and communication technologies in the country, we're extremely delighted to see discussions related to technology taking center stage in key platforms such as this one. We're indeed in an era of the fourth industrial revolution where technology is actually the key driver of both social and economic development. Discussions on topics such as AI will ensure that we leverage on the opportunities of technology and as well manage any emerging risks that may be associated with such innovations. I think this is an important point that Executive Director from CCPC had also emphasized. Ladies and gentlemen, the advancements in AI have taken the digital world by storm. Thanks to a release of chatbots that appear to mimic human conversation, millions of consumers are actually already using generative artificial intelligence in their daily lives. You will relate to this example that our own public power utility in the country is already leveraging on chatbots to engage with their customers on issues around billing, reporting faults, as well as sharing information on load management schedules. This is certainly a testament that the technology is set to have an enormous impact in the way we work, communicate, gather information, and do much more. There's certainly a real opportunity that is before us, and if used properly, AI could actually enhance consumer care services and improve channels for redress for consumer complaints. Distinguished invited guests, one of the most documented adverse impacts of artificial intelligence has been its impact on jobs. Several studies have shown that AI will obviously lead to increased automation, which will in turn reduce the demand for human labor. This trend is already underway as most businesses are already adopting AI to reap the benefits of efficiency as well as cost-saving measures that are driven by AI. However, the central recommendation for most of these studies has been that investing in education and training so that workers have the skills that they need to adapt to this emerging technology will certainly address the risk associated with job losses. In this context, AI should not just be seen in the context of automation, but how it can be used to augment human labor and making workers more efficient and focus on more critical tasks. However, our focus today is not on the impact of AI on jobs. Today we've gathered to discuss on how AI can be designed to be fairer, as well as be responsible in terms of how we use it and how it is developed. Ladies and gentlemen, AI systems are enabling new experiences and abilities for people around the globe. Beyond their social relevance, in recommending things like applications, short videos, and TV shows, AI can actually be used for more critical tasks such as predicting the presence of severity of a medical condition, matching people to jobs, as well as undertaking weather predictions. Such computerized assistive or decision-making systems have the potential to be more fair and more inclusive at a broader scale than historical decision-making processes based on human judgment. The risk, however, is that any unfair bias that comes with such systems can also have a wide-scale impact. Bias can also exist in the data that is used to train machine learning models, which are the basis for artificial intelligence. For example, if a dataset only includes male employment history, a machine learning algorithm trained on this data would be more likely to recommend male candidates for job openings. To avoid perpetuating such biases, it is important to use datasets that are certainly more diverse and more inclusive. Therefore, as the impact of AI increases across sectors and societies, it is equally critical to work towards systems that are fair and more inclusive for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, as earlier indicated, machine learning models are the foundation of artificial intelligence and learn from training data and making predictions on input data. Sometimes the training data or input data can also be quite sensitive. Although there may be enormous benefits to building a model that operates on sensitive data, it is essential to consider the potential privacy implications in using such sensitive datasets. This includes not only respecting the legal and regulatory requirements, but also considering social norms and individual expectations. For example, it is crucial to put crucial safeguards in place to ensure the privacy of individuals, considering that the models may remember or reveal aspects that are of a private nature. It is also essential to offer users transparency, control of their data, as some people may be uncomfortable with using personal data to train machine learning models. There are obviously several arguments that propose that individuals should be given a choice to consent to their data being used in AI and should know when and where the data is being used and whether AI is being used to make any decisions about them. Ladies and gentlemen, there are also some concerns related to safety and security when it comes to AI. AI safety and security entails ensuring that artificial intelligence systems behave as intended regardless of how attackers try to interfere. It is therefore essential to consider and address the safety of artificial intelligence systems before they are widely applied in safety critical applications. There are, however, many challenges associated with addressing issues around safety and security when it comes to AI. For example, it is very difficult to predict various scenarios that may lie ahead when it comes to applying AI. It is also hard to build systems that provide both the necessary proactive restrictions for safety as well as the necessary flexibility to generate creative solutions. Consequently, as AI technology evolves, it will be essential that security issues are taken into account, as attackers will certainly find new means of attacking, while new solutions will also need to evolve in tandem with these new developments. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is for these reasons that we find the theme for this year's World Consumer Rights Day quite timely. We must address ourselves to some of the challenges related to privacy violations, security, safety, as well as how AI-driven platforms can be used to spread and perpetuate biases. I am hopeful that the panel discussions that have been lined up today will address some of the issues that I've touched on and obviously provide some recommendations in terms of how we can address some of those limitations. Given the pace and advancement of AI, as well as the extent of adoption, we must all move very quickly to ensure that a fair and responsible AI is adopted for the future. In some regions, such as the European Union, they are already at an advanced stage in developing legislation relating to AI. While we must not be too quick to provide legislation in an area that is still evolving, as this may also stifle innovation, it is equally important that we all start to look ahead in terms of how we can best leverage on these opportunities as well as mitigate any observed or anticipated risks. It is only through such a proactive approach that we are going to guarantee fair and responsible AI for our consumers. With these few remarks, I wish to conclude my keynote address. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that keynote address. Before we get into the business of the day, I'd like to request for the high table where the Executive Director CCPC is sitting, and the table where the panelists are, to just join me by the foyer for a quick photo. Thank you very much. Just to mention that the session is live on Lusaka Radio 97.7 and being streamed live on the CCPC Facebook page and Zikta Facebook page. So we get straight into business of the day. We have 3 sessions, and the first session, we're going to look at the ethical AI design and development. And before I invite the panelists, I'd like to introduce the moderator for the 3 panel sessions, Mr. Paddy Mugano, who will come and join me and take over for me. So I'd like to invite Mr. Mugano to just come up so that we can just invite the panelists.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see all of you here. Welcome to today's commemoration of World Consumer Rights Day. And our first session has been introduced already, ethical AI design and development. Just to give you a sneak preview, our second session is entitled Consumer Empowerment Through AI, Enhancing Consumer Understanding and Decision Making. And the third and last session is Regulatory Frameworks and Accountability, Shaping Policies for Fair and Responsible AI Implementation. AI. I know as we sit here, we have different levels of understanding of this elephant in the room, as it were. For some, it gives us excitement and relief, you know, knowing it can be employed. For others, it gives us a lot of stress because our very jobs are under threat. I remember watching a clip just a few days ago of media presenters, you know, what I do on Phoenix and what colleagues do in the TV stations, ZNBC, Diamond TV, etc., where they have AI-generated presenters for radio and TV. I broke into a sweat where my children were concerned whether I was well on. And of course, what was that? Just recently we were celebrating the biggest find of copper deposits in this country, some are saying ever, in the history of this country. And how was that done? With AI. It's being called the first AI-powered mine. So AI was found to use the copper to find the copper deposits. We can be quite sure that AI will continue being used in that mine. Someone was talking about jobs, some of the jobs that indeed traditionally we have known to exist to employ different people in this country. Miners, all those technicians and everything. What does that mean for them? And as been alluded to already, just yesterday the European Union passed what it is calling a trailblazer law, the AI Act. What does all this mean? We will try our best in these next 3 sessions to, you know, dig into this whole scenario with the topics that I have introduced. We have 3 panelists in each of the sessions. And the first session, I will now like to invite Mr. Sajeev Nair, who is a board member and program advisor for the Consumer Unity Trust Society, CUTS International. We will ask him to just stand so that, okay, have they rigged you with the equipment yet? Okay, please take your seat on the stage. Let's give Mr. Sajeev a big hand as he makes his way. Okay, so we're putting some AI equipment on him right now, so we'll give it a few seconds. So Mr. Sajeev Nair will give us some insights on international collaboration on AI standards and global efforts for standardized AI practices. So Nair, please take your seat. Let's give him another round of applause as he goes up to the stage. Sure. All right. The next panelist is Mr. Simonza Muyandara. Simonza Muyandara is the Director Innovation and Entrepreneurship with Bongo High. And he is just like many of the panelists, he is one who has spent a lot of years in this industry, having set up Bonga himself with his partner. And he will give us also let us in on some of the issues around transparency in AI systems, explainability and interpretability. Explainability and interpretability of AI models. Let's give a big round of applause to Simonza Muyanga. Okay, he's getting the equipment as well. You can hear him clearly as he speaks. The third, not the least, panelist in this first session, Mr. Francis Kapinga. Mr. Francis Kapinga is the Assistant Director for Artificial Intelligence with the Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA. And he will give us also some of his wisdom on ethical considerations in data collection, preserving privacy in AI technology. Let's give Mr. Francis Kapinga a big hand as well. Perhaps while that is still being sorted out, we have this one that we can fall back on in the meantime. So my three panelists, I will give them 5 minutes each, maximum of 5 minutes each, just to give introductory remarks on their specific areas of expertise and that they'll be sharing with us. And like I said, we all have different levels of understanding of AI and all the technologies that surround it. So I've asked them to be as clear and simple as they can be. And so we can all indeed have the benefit of understanding in the presentation. Starting with Mr. Kapinga. Francis.
Hello. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Paddy. And I would just like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to come and be part of this panel discussion. Just to begin my conversation, I would want to take a minute or two just to appreciate the digital transformation that has happened in Zambia over the past decade. I remember when I left University of Zambia Computer Science Department in 2014, not too long ago, but I think that's about 10 years ago now. When I joined the corporate world, I was very excited about being part of digital transformation in many organizations. But when I went there, what I found was that computer scientists were doing much more things like fixing printers, fixing computers, more of hardware-centric kind of work. To an extent, I was disappointed because I was expecting much more. I was expecting to do the Google kind of things, you know. But over time, what I have observed is that within the past few years, many institutions have actually moved towards doing the actual digital transformation, developing softwares in-house, and that actually marks very remarkable transformation. So I would ask you to just reflect on what that means for us. It actually means a great deal. And just the fact that we are also here to discuss artificial intelligence, I would say that it's also a testament to how that Zambia is becoming even much more advanced in terms of technology. So this is something that we deserve to give ourselves kudos on. And Yes. Yeah, kudos to us indeed. So that is quite a lot of transformation that has happened over the past few years. And also, now that artificial intelligence is taking center stage in everything that we do, and also in digital transformation. By the way, artificial intelligence has been around for quite some time through our phones and other things, but now it's becoming a big subject because we are moving towards doing it ourselves. So that actually makes me even appreciate this day more in terms of us coming together to discuss the contemporary issues surrounding artificial intelligence, because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Artificial intelligence is going to be interacting with people. It's going to be interacting with people's data, which is a very, very big subject. I know when we talk about artificial intelligence, many normally run to talking about robots, talking about machines, talking about tools like ChatGPT and other things, but actually what artificial intelligence means is utilizing data extensively to become more intelligent, to make these computers and machines intelligent. So there's data, which is also a big subject that we have to think about. So when we come to data, I think that topic becomes quite sensitive because we are dealing with people's data and their privacy matters and such kind of issues. So there are many contemporary issues that we have to actually consider. And I would also like to say that I'm particularly pleased to be here from Zambia Revenue Authority, because in digital transformation, ZRA has been part of part of people driving or institutions driving innovation and being on the frontiers of technology. We have been doing software development in-house for many years. We have digitalized many of our business processes, and of course we have accumulated quite a lot of data as a result of that. And also I would say that we are among the first institutions of course, maybe assigned to be corrected, to even to even focus on utilizing artificial intelligence to help us in what we do. So I think we are at the frontiers, and I would want to say that us being invited here is something that is very important, and we really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That is Francisco from ZRA. Introductory remarks. Oh, great. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to sit in front of you and have this conversation around what it's going to mean with regards to the increasing use of AI in our world. Just as has been explained, AI has definitely been around for a while. The question, I think what got people excited was generative AI once ChatGPT and other models like that started coming into the market. But it's already been on our devices, like our mobile phones, for quite a while now. So, for example, my phone can predict what my next app is going to be based on patterns of usage that I've already had. So, for example, if I use a mobility app to take, for example, a ride from one place to another ride, it will bring my mobile money app next, because it knows that I'm going to it has figured out that the next thing I want to do after I take a ride is I want to make a payment. So we already have devices that are learning what we're going to do. Now the question then becomes, when we talk about transparency, is how are these things learning? How are these machines starting to learn what our behaviors are, what we can do, and the decisions that we're going to make in their efforts to try to make our lives easier. But also, are we giving them permission to learn these things and to do these things in the conversations that we're going to have? So we need to start to get to a place where I think the conversation that we want to have today is, where's the ethical use with regards to where we start to allow them to gain access to the data that we have. Typical example, we're having a conversation earlier. The cameras that we have around Lusaka, not even very far away, just in this country, that can now take a picture of you when you're speeding, are HD cameras that can also take a picture of you whilst you're in your car. Now, if they're taking a picture of you in your car, they can learn, they can be taught to see whether you're using your phone or not, allowing the authority to then say, on this day you were on your phone when you were driving past past a certain place and we can fine you for that. However, the question is, the camera taking a picture of you in your car could be argued, could be an invasion of your privacy. Because when did you give them permission to look inside your car? They could take a picture of your number plate when you're speeding, or they can take a picture of you speeding, but have you given them permission to look inside your car to see what you're doing inside your car, to see who you're with inside your car, to see what else could be going on inside your car? So these are considerations that we need to, we need to start getting to the meat of when we start to say, yes, we're trying to make our lives easier, but where are the rules that we're now placing with regards to when we give permission, when we don't give permission, and when it's necessary for these things to happen? So I'm looking forward to a very good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Simonza, and thank you for indeed making some of us cringe talking about looking into our cars and what's going on without permission. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Sajiv Nair from CUTS International.
Good morning once again. Thank you, Chair, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us. As CUTS, we are very delighted to be part of this discussion. CUTS is a consumer protection organization with a 40-year standing. Of course, we are celebrating our 40 years. And as part of our work on consumer welfare competition, we have been studying AI processes, AI regulations for a couple of years. But I am not a technical person like previous speakers, and I am more of an economist. I am a business analyst. What we have learned so far is that, when we talk about, today session, I'm going to speak about international collaboration. When we look at that, there is no commonly defined definition of AI at present. That's what we understood, because it varies from country to country, institution from institution. That's the way it is. The second aspect is that when we talk about AI, even the previous speakers talked about, the first thing comes to the discussion table is security, safety, and that is paramount. I think that's because if you look at what is happening in the 2 days ago, there was a US government commission report on AI came out. I'm sure some of you must have read it. It talks about existential threat to the humanity from the AI. That is a conclusion of the study. And it talks about specific regulations to be implemented by national governments in terms of the usage of AI, as well as usage of supercomputers. When we talk about AI, it is about computers, it is about data centers, it is about the softwares, and it is also about the business. We cannot isolate AI to the big tech companies. They are the backbone of this AI, and they are the one investing in AI, and they are investing as well as reaping benefit from that, because they have, for instance, the Facebook or Meta and many of and we have the Google and many of the companies, they are part of it. So we need to look at the aspect of, and when we talk about tech companies, they are mostly advocating for self-regulation. They don't want to be regulated by the government, and that's a core aspect of it. They want consumers, they want other businesses to be following what the tech companies would like to have, and that means they have a dominance. And when we look at the sphere of competition, we feel that AI can be a good tool, but it can also have a lot of negative aspect. It can also promote collusion in the market. The companies, let's say e-commerce companies, they have a huge role, and many countries, Zambia, we are still getting close to the e-commerce, but then e-commerce companies, let's say two e-commerce companies collude. If you search for some good or a product, and they can collude and they can influence the market, and they can also have monopolies. The other aspect the previous speaker today discussed about is the cultural elements. Those who are part of the digital inclusivity, the digital world, and they are included in the process. Let's say if you search certain things, and you get the result based on who is on the database. And there are cultures, there are societies, there are disadvantaged consumers. They are not part of that, but their preferences, their choices are not being reflected in the AI system. So it is about data, and if you have a dominant society, their belief, their thought process, their preferences are included in the data. And that is considered as a dominant process, and others do not have the say. And I think we look at those are the challenges, especially in the AI governance. Let me leave it here, Chair.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Sajeev Naya. Let's give him a round of applause. We're going to go into discussing particular questions, but would like to let you know that at the end of this discussion, we will open it up to you, our audience. If you have a question to any one of the panelists, if you have a contribution to make to the subjects that will be discussed, we will give you time at the end. So in about 40 minutes, perhaps, we will try to wrap up here. Then give you a chance also to, give your input, whether it's through a question or submission, so that it can be addressed by one of the panelists. So the question is what to start with. Simunza. Yeah, and you know I am starting on you. AI systems. I think everyone here has basically commented on some of the concerns around AI systems as they pertain to, to human beings. So we're talking about transparency, in ethics and everything. What exactly is it that we should understand about transparency and also ethics in AI designs?
Great. So I hope that in this conversation that we're going to have today, we don't get the impression that we are naysayers against artificial intelligence. I think there's an exciting opportunity that goes ahead of us. I think we're also at the cusp of a place where we can definitely contribute to or participate in a frontier technology that then allows us to understand where we want to be and how we want to do it. And I think that a forum like this brings about that opportunity. However, whilst we do so, like I said, we need to also discuss where the guardrails are and what place we play inside there, and also what our contributions are to making this a worldwide, something that actually works for us worldwide. Because we know that there are, the current way that the world is balanced with, for example, with the data that exists online, there are going to be trends and there are going to be biases that then definitely creep into how machines are going to make decisions, because that's what we're really talking about when you talk about AI. We're at a place where machines start to make, simply put, machines start to make decisions. We're moving from a place where computer programming is really you saying, if this happens, then do this, or do something else, towards a place where the computer on its own starts to decide, if I see this or if this happens, then my decision is going to be that. I'll give you an example. Based on historical data, you can give a machine learning, you can give a machine information, and then allow it to go through that data and then start to see similarities. And based on those similarities, it starts to make a decision as to what is ideally good, what is ideally bad, or what should exist and what shouldn't exist, or what the definitions of things are. A real example. A machine was fed pictures of human beings over a long period of time. Now, the thing with AI, and that's why transparency comes into place, is you give it basic information and then you allow it to decide what its qualifiers are for how it's going to define something. So a machine is given pictures of human beings over a period of time, and then basically told basic rule. Figure out who's male and who's female. So every time it shows a male, you say correct. Every time it shows female, you say wrong, until it now starts to distinguish and say, okay, great. This is what a male looks like. This is what a female looks like. Now, remember I said this is a true story, and women don't get angry with me. I'm just telling you the story. What they discovered was, after a while, the challenge it had was it could clearly distinguish the difference between men, but it had a problem with defining who a black woman was. African, black, whatever you decide to call yourself. It had a problem with defining who that was. Now, the challenge with that was then now this is of course in America, and now completely it would always define, whenever shown a picture of a white woman, it would say that's a woman. Whenever shown a picture of a black woman, it would say that's a man. And so they said, okay, maybe the data set we're working with is not great, because America, of course, majority people white. Let's move the data set towards Africa. And they moved it towards Kenya and said, can you start training it on models so that it sees more black women, and then it learns what black women look like so that it can define black women. Now the context at which they finally got to the place where it could now recognize black women was very, very interesting. Now this is where the question around transparency is. When you ask yourself the question, how was it defining who a woman is and how was it defining who a man is something, remember, you're not teaching it. It's learning for itself by making comparisons, and then it decides what the rules it's going to apply to make that decision are. The rules that it taught itself, remember it's teaching itself, the rules that it taught itself to distinguish between a man and a woman are, it looked at men, it looked at women, and then decided that if I see very colorful makeup on a person, that's a woman. Now, most white women, if you say white skin with very colorful makeup, it could distinguish the colorful makeup. When it looked at black women, it couldn't see the colorful makeup, and so it decided those are men. So now, if you allow that to then start making decisions going along, it then starts to introduce bias that comes into the world when it's training on its own. Now, second example I'll give you. Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple. When Apple introduced the Apple Card, he noticed that when he applied for credit, his credit limit was higher than his wife. Now, this is the founder, so we're not talking about a poor person. Like, Apple's one of the biggest companies in the world right now. He recognized that his credit limit was higher than the credit limit of his wife. Now, the question he asked was, if my wife and I use a shared account, how is it deciding that my wife has a lower credit limit than I do? So the data that the machine learned on picked up on human bias against women. So it says, we normally give men higher limits when, now human beings have given higher limits towards men when giving loans. We've given lower limits to women when given loans. So even if these two live in the same household, because she's a woman, I should apply more risk towards women. So the transparency then, when we talk about transparency, the question we're then asking ourselves is, how is the machine actually making a decision? And when do we get to a place where we can correct that decision before it goes out into the market and starts applying our bad decisions from history or its own decisions from wherever it has learned things towards a world, and then as human beings we just start to accept that, no, the machine could be right. Because it could have implications whether we're talking about justice, finance, or other places where we start to apply AI.
So, let me come to Francis. Someone just told us about how AI begins to distinguish between men and women and what should apply to each category. ZRA, I know you have a lot of data. Some women may be asking, any chance that women will be made to pay lower taxes than men? Will AI bring about suggestions? But tell us about the data. Why should organizations collect data on people, and how is it used?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. And to begin with, I would say that by law, I think everyone is required to pay the same amount of taxes. so that is very engraved, and it's not going to change. So all the applications have to align with that. But yes, why should organizations collect data? And as my colleague here has labored to explain artificial intelligence and how that it relies quite a lot on data, and that could be one of the reasons if you have ambitions to, of course, come up with such kind of situation, such kind of innovation. But there are more reasons why organizations should collect data. First of all, I'll start with statutory requirements. For certain institutions, especially the banking institutions, for example, they're actually legally mandated to collect data. If you look at the FIC Act, if you look at Money Laundering Act, you find that actually required to collect certain data and keep it, and so that in the future may perhaps avoid repudiation and such kind of things. But beyond that, beyond the legal requirements, there are also innovation requirements, innovation needs that you might want to pursue as an institution so that you can make yourself efficiency. Data, I know when we normally talk about privacy and subjects like this one, we're talking about, we're looking at it mostly from the perspective of protecting consumers, which I think is a very, very valid point, and you shouldn't lose sight of that one. But when you look at data also, is you ask yourself, why are people actually going after it? It's because it's because of the benefits that come with data-driven solutions. Think of yourself like as a business, as an entrepreneur. Let's say you have an e-commerce. I think I like that example because it's benign. So you are running an e-commerce business. You have a lot of products that you have to sell to a lot of people, and then you also have to spend on your marketing, and you have to spend on cost of you have to spend on distribution of these products and services. What data can help you do in such kind of a situation is that if you use it properly, you will find yourself being more efficient, in that once you study it properly, you are going to identify trends, you are going to identify which customer segments you are going to consume what product. For example, you might be like, okay, if I take this product to demographics in universities, these might be my correct target groups. So when you use data in that way, you find that you all benefit. Customers benefit in that the products and services that come to them are much more customized, much more tailored to their needs. And as you may already guess, that introduces efficiencies in how you deploy these services, because then you don't have to shoot in the dark and guess about who is going to need what. So those are the benefits that you will see to have. And also, like for an institution like ours as well, legally, I think we're also required to have certain data, but also when it comes to how we collect and utilize data, even from the innovative perspective, that may help us lower the cost of tax collection. For example, we can easily identify where the tax gaps are and make the right investments in certain areas. And also sometimes it's not just about knowing that maybe Mr. Paddy here is not doing well, so that we go after him. Sometimes it's more of knowing that, okay, we have this demographic that seems to be they are supposed to be active when it comes to turnover tax, but they are actually not as active as they are. So we target them with the necessary education and equip them. So in the long run, everyone benefits really. But of course, as you focus on these benefits, you shouldn't lose sight, as I said at the beginning, of the issues that come with being a data-driven institution, for example, having a lot of data that belongs to customers. And thank you.
Now, before I move to Sajiv, I want to stay with you for just a second, Francis. When you talk about data, you're talking about collecting a lot of data, especially ZRA. I think you have a lot of data, basically, for just about everyone, at least, who has some form of economic activity. I remember, especially if you have a bank account, remember there was that drive, if you don't have a tip-in number, you can't open an account. And you know, from all that, you know, the consequent, you know, processes to collect all the data. The question comes, just, you know, a sidebar reference to issues like what Simunza talked about, when he talked about RATSA and these cameras looking into your cars and everything. The data that you have about people, there's a concern, obviously, and it has been mentioned more than once, privacy. How important is privacy? And how can you ensure privacy of this data? You yourself talked about, you know, using it to, or rather perceptions that it is used to target people. But how can you ensure the privacy of the data that is collected?
Thank you. Actually, that is a very good question, because we have to think about privacy, and this privacy has to be at the core of what you do, both from the perspective of data collection. As you collect this data, it has to be like one of the fundamental things to focus on, and also how you develop your AI solution. You have to think about possible accidents of data leakages, such kind of things, and those things are not only important from the perspective of consumers like everyone that is here, but also from the perspective of the institution itself, like Zambia Revenue Authority. We don't want to have negative headlines that will jeopardize our reputation. So it is something that we have to take very seriously, and we do take it very seriously. And to your question, when it comes to certain things that you can put in place to ensure that you have privacy, in a practical sense, you need, within the institution itself, you need to have very clear and strong data governance policies. They need to be clear, and they need to be well embraced by everyone. So these policies normally guide you how to, or on how you collect this data, how you use it, who uses it, and what you use it for. So you need to be very clear. And also, as you do that, you need to ensure that you actually keep in mind the laws that govern what we do, especially when it comes to data. We have Data Protection Act, and also when you are involved in collecting data from other places like overseas, for example, you may have to keep in mind certain laws like GDPR that guide you on how to deal with this data. And also, when you're thinking about ensuring that you have privacy, it is critical that you manage access control. Access control is very key. What that really means is that it's not everyone that needs to know every aspect of the data that you have within the institution. For example, our colleagues, auditors, might have to see information about certain cases. That is because that is their job. And also, maybe our data scientists might have to see certain information because of what they do, or database administrators. But do you really need accountants to see all the information about taxpayers? They probably don't. So you have to make sure that you manage that access, and you only see what you need to see. So these are some of the aspects of data management that you have to ensure that you put in place to inspire confidence in how you deal with the data, and also to ensure that you protect yourself from negative ramifications.
Thank you, Francis. We are comforted that those are some of the systems you have in place to ensure privacy is protected. So, Chief, I know it's international, so I think your organization has been keenly following, discussions and developments in AI. When you look at the Zambian scenario, I know you have a global perspective, but you've heard the submissions from the two gentlemen here. When you look at the Zambian scenario, what are some of the challenges that we have as they pertain to the consumer? And when I look around, I think we are all in that category of consumer. So the Zambian perspective of AI challenges, the systems and results.
Thank you. when we talk about artificial intelligence, we cannot isolate Zambia because we are part of the global system. I think that's the first and most important thing. At present, as I understand, we are not using the data which we generate the need should be. I think that's the basic aspect. And we are the providers of data to the large companies, to the developed world, to big companies. They are still collecting, each second, they are collecting data from Zambia about our preferences, what we buy, what we use, all those things. But that means we are at the receiving end of the development. When we look at the global scenario, first let me come to Zambia. Who are the key global players in the AI system? Is the US, the UK, and China. And these are the three dominant players. They control over 50% of all the patents on AI. They have, and they control most of this. And when we look at our scenario, we have a Data Protection Act, but then we need to ensure that we use those data for businesses. In other countries, they are using the businesses are the key beneficiaries of this data. They are using it for promoting their business, for selling, deciding, for innovation. And what we need here is our regulatory agencies, and that is where we need to discuss about international collaboration. Our regulation on data protection, the key regulators, it is a SIPA, the CCPC, and sector regulators. They need to come together to ensure that we have a comprehensive data protection regulation as well as a regulation on AI, because that's the fundamental aspect of protecting consumers. And we also see that, there are very few companies using AI. We have institutions like ZRA, but we don't have, that much active use. And that is the aspect which has to be deliberately promoted. Because if you don't do it, the developmental gap which is taking place in the world of AI, the technological innovation, will be still, falling behind. And I think that's, we need to be proactive. We look forward and we see that what we should be there. Let's say Zambia, our 2030 vision, our 2050, what we could be doing in terms of as a hub of promoting IT, as a hub promoting technology. And that's a core aspect which I would like to say that we need to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Sajeev. Maybe let me get to Simunza one more time. CCPC and other consumer protection professionals like them, how can they advocate for ethical AI design and development?
All right. I think part of the conversation we've had here is around data protection. But I think before you get to data protection, in my opinion, the cardinal place that you need to start from is what you call data sovereignty. Who actually owns the data? So you need to have a very clear definition of of Simunza Myangan as a human being. Any data that he produces is owned by Simunza. So whether the ZRA have it, ultimately it's Simunza's data. Meaning that I should actually have the rights to be able to say to ZRA, for example, you hold my data, I'm no longer going to, for whatever reasons, I no longer submit to your thing, so you should delete my data. Now, it's not as simple as that, of course. I'm not trying to frighten you. But it's not as simple as that, but there should be an understanding that that's my data. It's not the government's data, it's my data. So then that brings into place the permissions that come into place before ZRA can share my data with somebody else. So I should be allowed to go to the ZRA website and understand how they're going to use my data, who they're going to share my data with, and if ever they need to share my data with somebody else, for example, they should be able to come back to me and then say, Simunza, this ministry, this organization, so on and so on, this researcher would like to understand how you do XYZ over a period of time, or the bank or whoever it is, can we share your data with them? Now, there are various ways this could be done, whether it's opt-in, opt-out using devices and other kind of things. So once you get to a place like that, then the question then follows on is, how do we protect this data? Because then you as a human being understand what your rights are, you understand who has access to your data, and you understand what your data is being used for. Now, of course, there are going to be intelligence wings, so and so on, and all of that can be factored in with definitely state laws and permissions that then allow for that to happen. So I think consumer protection should start from that place, like from a place of, do consumers understand what their rights are? Do consumers understand that they've got the right to give permission and the right to take away permission from how their data is being used? So that even when corporations come into a place, that fundamentally is a rule that cuts across the nation that then says who has access to a person's data, and is a consumer giving information to data. So even when I sign up to a bank, I'm then giving permission to the data to hold my data. But when the bank decides to work with another partner, the bank should ideally ask me for permission to say, can we give your data to this other partner, so that they can make advertising choices, they can make choices as what products they want to design for you, and move on to a place like that. Then consumer protection and other regulators can then also go into the conversation we've had around what is the bias mitigation that takes place. Can you have explainability or interpretability happening around models when, for example, our ICT regulator, when giving licenses towards people that then start to use AI models, when they claim that they're building business models, can they clearly explain how the machine has learned its data, and can they clearly explain how it's making its decisions, so that there's fair play around how it's making decisions? Now, there are small things that we get, for example. Zambia police, if you've ever had the unfortunate case like me to be caught by Zambia police, is when they're writing a report on you, there's a very weird question that I find that they ask there. And that is, one of the questions they ask is, what's your tribe? Now, I have no idea to this day why the hell they ask for my tribe. Like, let's just pretend I'm a criminal. What has that got to do with my tribe?
Yeah. Do they actually ask for tribe?
Yes, it does ask for tribe.
I've never been caught by the police.
Okay, I've been caught about 3 times. But I've asked them, like, why are you asking for my tribe? So now, if in a set of data, you can start to make certain conclusions. You can start to make certain conclusions and then say, this tribe behaves like this, and this tribe behaves like that. Now, the truth is, certain tribes are just going to have the majority because they make 18% of this country. They're the majority tribe in this country. Then we're going to make certain conclusions that this tribe behaves in a certain way. When, like, listen, it's simple mathematics. They're the majority. And they're going to lend themselves towards certain places. But then now we'll start to have AI or machine learning that then starts to make decisions against certain people, and then we'll start saying that it's tribalistic. When it's simple basic mathematics that we just haven't thought through. So it's the duty of our regulators to question and wonder why these things are made, and how these decisions are being, and how certain forms and certain things are, how certain data is being collected, and how that feeds into the decisions that are going to be made. So then, like I said, opt-in, opt-out mechanism is something that we now should finally get into. This whole business where telcos or whoever start to spam you, allow certain people to spam you with SMSs, or allow people to get to a place where you don't know and you've suddenly found yourself signed up into certain things, or you're suddenly finding certain. Can we get to find a place where people can say they are accepting that they can receive certain emails, they're accepting that they can get certain messages, they're accepting that they can get be added to a new product. I had the funny incident once where my bank once sent an email to me many years ago, and they said, would you like welcome to our Diva product? Now, what made me laugh is like, when did I become female? But it just showed me how messed up my bank's data is. So but then it's like, but when did I buy into and decide that I wanted to join to get into the Diva product? So but you never asked me. And now I'm going to start getting bank charges because you've decided to upgrade me to a certain product without asking me for that permission. So it's this opt-in and opt-out that we now need to start considering, and we need to normalize and decide on. And the regulators need to make sure and take an unbiased stance towards making sure that, one, the citizen and the consumer are prime, and that even when startups, and we love to build products and we want to collect data because we need to design products, but in the process of doing so, can we make sure that we have the right permissions and are respecting and protecting the people that we're working with?
Just to remind you, dear audience, that you will be given a chance to ask questions and make submissions to the topics being discussed. Perhaps before we open it up to the audience, Francis, can you allow me to put you on the spot? He talked about, what was that you said, Simmons, about being the owner of the data, even if it's sitting, data sovereignty, yeah, that big word. You are the only one on this panel from an institution, a government institution, that is custodian of data, individuals' data. How do you see that working? Could that work where you hold data and somebody is the ultimate authority over the data that you hold, and for you to do what you do with it, you would then have to get back to them, ask for their permission, notify them on what is going on. How do you see that working with ZRA in Zambia? Like I said, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
A tough question indeed, and but a very important conversation indeed to be had. I think what my colleague Moses has tried to explain also, among many things, is consent, which is very, very important when it comes to dealing with the subject of data collection and data usage. So that is cardinal indeed, in as much as it is. But when you are talking about data usage in an organization, I think it's also important to understand the types of data that we have. So one, I would say, is one that is core and primary to the function of an institution. So that drives the institution's mandate or enables the institution to discharge its functions. So an example is you might be a customer that comes to register for certain types of taxes, let's say turnover tax or income tax or whatever it is. So how that data is used, I think it's mostly is mostly guided by how ZRA is functions. So that you might not very well, you might not have that opportunity to come and dictate how that is used. But of course it has to be used in a way that factors in all the other things that we talked about, like following the guidelines from the Data Protection Act and such kind of things. And then there's another kind of data that I would say is nice to have, data that let's say you might acquire through social media, like where someone comes into the website, comes into our website and then ticks to say that, yeah, I would like my data to be used like that. So such kind of data that is coming maybe through the internet and all that, I can call it maybe secondary data. So that to an extent you might have control in terms of, actually you need to have control in terms of how long that data should be kept, what it should be used for and all that. Something that is a bit secondary, yes.
Okay, before we let my panelists return to their seats, we'll open it up to the audience now. So we have Sajiv Nair from CATS International, Simmons Amiyangana from Bongo Hive, Francis Kapinga from ZRA. They have given their presentations, they've answered questions. Do we have any reactions? Do we have a microphone that, or do we have the only microphones that can go around? Could you see some hands? I see one, two hands. Maybe we can start with those. If your question is directed at a particular panelist, please just mention that. And also let us know who you are before you give us your contribution.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Malaizio Gabriel Muzumala. I'm a data analyst at ZRA. Okay. So my question is targeted at Mr. Kapinga and Mr. Simeza. Mr. Simunza. Yeah. So it's around the prediction of these models we create. If we create models in industries which are very consequential, such as lending, for example, right, where if certain swaths of the population are not allowed to borrow, it has huge impacts on their futures over time. Let's say we get a reasonably accurate model, right? Number one, what should we do with or how should we handle the victims of the bias as it develops? If it's at a level of accuracy we're, let's say, willing to accept. And number two is, in situations like this, as AI is getting better, there will come a point, or perhaps in certain industries has come a point, where the AI will be better at deciding than the best human, right? Possibly, okay. Now, if that happens, should we keep the human involved? Yes. Those are basically my two questions.
Good morning, everyone. My name's now TJ Samatoli, Manager Cybersecurity, coming from the regulator sector. So mine is not a question, but more of just clarification and I think reacting to what Mr. Simunza spoke into. So just to give guidance, when you mentioned about the opt-in and opt-out, there's actually a regulation or law already in existence. Started in the ECT Act, Electronic Communications Transactions Act, number 21 of 2009, repealed. We carried it forward in the 2021 Electronic Transaction Act. So issues about opt-in, opt-out are already covered in the law, and you can look at those acts. Concerning data protection, your principles, I think you might be aware the Data Protection Act already covers most of those principles. However, the right to erasure of your data, and I think I like what the director did highlight from ZRA, the Act does give limits. For example, contractual obligations. You cannot just claim because your data is tied to a contractual obligation that now, because it's your data, have it erased. No. The law has provided in a manner in which that can be erased when it is not relevant. So safeguards are already there in that act, and section 62, I think, to respond to my brother, does give effect how profiling should be done. I'll give you a practical example. If the financial sector or the Credit Reference Bureau want to score you on your credit score, if they decide to use a water utility bill, and given the fact that, for example, there's a pipe that's broken outside your yard and your meter is going up, a system might be good to recognize that there's a water bill, but it won't read the emotional part of realizing that there was a mistake made. So they are good at calculating, but not good at correcting where the errors that exist, such as that example. So maybe that will help with the response. But I just thought I'd give that comment on the other side. Thanks.
From Malays, that's a very good question. So when you talk about biases, I think this is something that I want to write on your submission, which I think was very valid, about how certain data might be biased towards women, for example. That has to be addressed, I think, at many levels. First of all, I think as people that are building these models and deploying solutions, these competences, you need to have the right competences to do some of these things, because many people, especially that we have artificial intelligence now coming up, they will go to Coursera, do a 2-week course on machine learning, and then they think they've become data scientists, and then they go on and roll out some of these things. So I think the subjects are much bigger, and you have to be aware of a lot of things that surround these tools that we come up with, so that you handle them by design from the start. For example, like for what you talked about, that is a high impact situation where if a model learns certain biases and then it discriminates against a certain section of society, I think that is something that you have to ensure that by design you consider that possibility depending on the kind of model that you're building. There are all these things such as confusion matrix that is a bit more technical, you can just ignore it, but that show you exactly how your performance, how the performance of the model is shaping out, and then you know exactly how to, and then you also need to come up with the strategies on how to handle that. And one of the strategies is actually not even tech itself, is more of thinking about how does AI models work together with humans. For example, when you, if I have to bring this subject home again to my institutions that are in, let's say we come up with some clever model that is able to detect that Francis is possibly going to invade or has done some tax evasion this side. So what do? Do you then call the police, load them into the vehicle, and then go after that guy with a lot of sirens and round them up and throw them in jail? You don't do that. So what you have to do is when a model gives you certain predictions in such kind of a sensitive environment, you probably have to subject such kind of results to further scrutiny by a human. But what the benefit that you would have gotten is that instead of you looking at 1,000 cases, you'll be looking at 10 cases. So it helps you become efficient, but you shouldn't forget the human in the loop when it comes to handling such kind of things. And then just to briefly also touch on your second question on where AI becomes better at doing certain things. A good example there, I think, that I might want to refer to make reference to is autonomous drive. For example, Tesla, where you have vehicles that are able to drive themselves. They are studying these things. I also worked on for an auto company, Volvo, where that is also one of the serious researches that they're focusing on, to see if vehicles can at some point be able to drive themselves. There could be evidence that machines can become much smarter at handling situations, because they smarter. They become smarter, yes, because they don't get tired, they don't have emotions, they're just up for the job. So they could be, at a given specific task, they might be very good at it. But as you might be aware, when you're building a model, when you build models, there's always that room for error. If someone comes to you to say that I have a model that is 100% right all the time, you are either dealing with someone who's lying to you, or you are dealing with someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. So there's always that room for error, and this room for error might, in autonomous drive, for example, forgive me for using this example, but in an event where an autonomous, a vehicle that is driving itself or being driven by AI gets you in an accident, kills a person, that normally is makes a lot of headlines. But so let's say you have 1,000 vehicles being driven by machines. Because of that error, it's possible that one of them might be in such kind of situations, or maybe even less than, or maybe it could be 1 out of 2,000 cases that might be found in fatal accidents. But if we have to also look on the flip side, where you have, let's say, 2,000 vehicles being driven by human beings, it's possible that actually you might even have like 5 accidents among those like 2,000 drivers. But then the question there is normally like, should we then let AI drive cars because of that one accident? People will normally not talk about whether or not humans should drive, even when they might have more accidents than machines. So it's more of human nature. We are uncomfortable with mistakes coming from artificial intelligence, but somehow maybe we have evolved to learn, and I appreciate that as humans we do make mistakes. It's part of it. We have there could be accidents in many places. That is a thing, but one accident from Tesla makes global news. I don't know if in America they know about some of the accidents that we have here. Probably they never get to hear about them. So those are my submissions. Sorry for taking too long, but I'll just...
I wouldn't have said it better. I think in addition to what you've said, is that I think something that we need to consider, and I think that's the point I was trying to make in the first place, was we need to also account for our contribution of data towards this global data set of data which allows machines to get better at making certain decisions. So for example, when you talked about lending and you start talking about certain people, we need to also accept that there's a vast amount of data that we're dealing with that hasn't been captured yet. So for example, I think about 7 years ago, Africa's contribution to all data that was available on Google was about 5%. Where does that place Zambia? If you put it into that context, so which means the vast majority of data that is being computed on, or that is being translated, we are on the minimal side, and so that's why the errors do not work in our favor. So we now need to get to a place where, when you start to get a place where you start to bring in equal access and equal contribution, in a sense, towards data, and that could start off with like digital IDs, for example, and meaning now you have a place where you can start off, and then you can start to track behavior, how people do things, people's access towards systems and all that kind of stuff. Then you start to get samples where you can start to make decisions and start to see how behavior. But right now, a lot of the models that we're looking at are based on the behavior or that we're translating from how the West behaves or how Asia behaves, and then we're trying to work backwards towards where we are and the decisions that we're trying to make. Now, it's completely correct with regards to his understanding of the law is definitely way better than mine. Or what the actual act says with regards to that. And I know that I was giving extreme examples with regards to that, but I think the point that I was trying to make lends itself towards we have a lot of work to do towards awareness and education, which also includes when regulators start to work, they should remember that citizens and consumers are cardinal, as is the conversation that we're having today. And part of that is making people understand that when we start to interact with systems, they actually have some ownership on the data that they are contributing towards that. And with that sense of ownership, they should take responsibility as to who they are giving permission to. And when they give permission, what are the processes that are going to take, what's going to be kept, and what are the decisions that are going to happen when that data is contributed. Where almost all of us are already careless in the sense that we don't even read the fine print of what we sign off for, or what we put our thumbprints to when we give permission for certain apps to have access to our data or to start processing that. You had an example, it was very, very recently in Kenya, where you had a startup that moved into Kenya and was taking pictures of people's irises and paying them $25 for them to sign off and then have their pictures of their irises taken. Now, for $25, people were signing off and not reading the fine print as to what this startup is going to do with the pictures of their irises. Now, your iris is an identity point. I mean, we can distinguish different people from just the picture of your iris. Now, people didn't realize that you're giving power to a startup that in the future will come back and then say, hi, if you ever need to KYC all the people in this room, let them take a picture of their thing and we'll give you that and we'll make money off that. Now, the person gave that permission a long time ago and got paid for its $25, not realizing that this is a multi-billion company that's going to benefit off that permission. And you signed off on saying that you no longer have sovereignty over that data. So it's these considerations that we need to empower our citizens into understanding that the world that we're coming to, read the fine print, or at least enforce startups and companies to give short versions of the things that people can read through to understand what they're giving away before they get to a point where they've signed off their lives. So that's the point I was trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Simuza. Do you have any?
Just you conclude?
In relation to the questions that were asked?
Or concluding remarks? No.
Not yet. Okay. So we need to wrap up. Then we need to wrap up the first session. We had 2 questions. Any other hand? Okay. The last 2 questions then, and then we will move on to the second session of the day. Where's the agenda? Okay.
My name is Victor Skombe. I'm the consumer officer at CATS International, and my question goes to Mr. Nia. How can government mitigate the risks that comes with AI, knowing that most of the consumers are over-depending on artificial intelligence? Thank you.
Okay. Did we all hear that question? Did you hear the question, Mr. Nia?
Yes, please.
You did. Okay.
Hello, my question is for Mr. Simonza. My name is Mukaba. So I know that at the end of the day, I will get home and I will start scrolling through Facebook, and I'll probably receive a few friend suggestions from some people from this room. So my question is, you will tell me that yes, me using the app, I gave it permission to use my location to find this place. But what if that's not enough information? What if I want to know the coding? So is the coding a part of the transparency standard or not?
Can you repeat the question?
So Chief, would you?
I didn't hear the last sentence.
It's about coding, is it? Yes. Yeah.
All right, so my question is the coding a part of transparency?
Mr. Chief, you could go first. Mr. Chief, you go first with your question.
Thank you, Victor, for that very interesting question about the mitigating risk. I think that's the core of our discussion. You know, when we talk about sharing our data, the usage of data, as well as the application of AI in different like health sector, education sector, transport sector. Okay, so in terms of the mitigating risk, it is again linked to regulation. That is important. At present, we do not have a regulation exclusively to deal with AI application. I think that is important, and that's the basis. And we have 3 models in the world at present in terms of regulation which we can follow. One is a European Union model, EU model. They are talking about data protection, consumer welfare, non-discrimination, and gender welfare. 4 aspects. We have the US model where they don't have a national legislation on AI, but they are talking about the self-regulation by companies. They have the different states, they have program, and thirdly we have the Chinese model. Chinese are using a vertical model of each program. They look at the benefits, cost and benefit of that, and the risk involved in that one. They decide what sort of regulation we need to have on that one. So we, as a country, we need to choose, what is best for us in terms of regulation among the best alternatives. And international level, of course, we do not have a law that is guiding it. At present, the UN Secretary General is having a committee which is advocating for a global legislation dealing with the risk mitigation and how to promote consumer welfare, gender discrimination, and inclusivity in the AI application. So we may have to be part of that process, and I think that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sachi.
Great. Transparency with regards to platforms like Facebook. Is that your question? Great. if we look at models and data that is stored and where the models are being trained on, my personal view, this is very much my personal view, the company I'm most afraid, if Google has the most data with regards to what its access is, the company that I'm most afraid of is Facebook. And that's why I left years ago. Because they're the one company that has data that's very specific to human beings, in the sense of when you got angry, which team you supported, the things that make you happy, the secret conversations you've had with other people behind in your DMs, they've got that data. Which means if I was to train a bot to behave like you, I would need to use Facebook's data. So when we finally get to the point where you can no longer recognize the difference between a human being and a machine when you're having a conversation, my bet is that's going to come from Facebook. Now, did you give them permission? Of course you did. And when we talk about transparency, then these are all the questions that we're now starting to have, is what permissions are they giving? How are they coding, and how are they processing this data, which includes the code and the permissions that they're given, which includes them. So these are the cases that you're now seeing why CEOs are being called in front of Congress, or if you follow the EU model, it will regulate ahead of everybody because we've got the human being at the center of this place. Now, there's always going to be a case in that regulators, of course, if we're relying on regulators to make this, is you can't over-regulate in advance because then that might stop innovation, and you don't want to do that. So you want to allow a leeway where people can do things, experiment, and find out what they can do, and then add guardrails as to how far they've gone. Or you can go the Wild West model, which is just allow them to do it when enough people have died in cars, then we'll start to, I mean, he's actually correct about it. The truth is, even though Tesla's had accidents, it's minimal compared to human accidents, very, very minimal. And unfortunately, the accidents are part of the learning. So but then you've got to allow that to happen to get to a model where the machine is perfected and gets better at what it's doing. But then, like I said, the other ways you could say stop everything, then no innovation takes place at that point. So yes, transparency is the ability to be able to ask a company, how have you made this decision, and what type of coding have you allowed to be able to make that, to get to the point where this machine can make that decision. Yes. Thank you.
With that somewhat frightening solution from Simona, especially for Facebook users, which I'm sure many of us are. I'd like to thank all of you, Sajeev, Simonza, and Francis. Thank you so very much. I think we'll give them a round of applause. That was the first session on ethical AI design and development. We'll be going into the second session, whose title is Consumer Empowerment Through AI, Enhancing Consumer Understanding and Decision Making. Before we do, we'll allow you to break for tea. We have tea that is ready to be served outside our hall, on one condition, that you go get your tea and return to your table. Return to your seat and have your tea inside on your tables. Oh, sorry, tea is actually to my right in this adjoining section here. So just walk over, get our tea, and come back to our table so that we can then continue with the next session. Once again, a very big thank you to the panelists in our first session.
Wonderful.